All right, and for everyone else, it's 8:01. We normally get started about 3 to 4 minutes after 8 o'clock. So we are going to give people 2 more minutes to get on, and then we are going to get started. All righty, we are going to get started. I got asked by several people that were on the call last time to sort of go over a lot of the things that we went over last time because it was a lot of information. So if you haven't been on this before, or if you haven't been on the call in a while, you will actually, you'll find this to be a refresher. Please feel free to take notes, take pictures of the screenshots, whatever it is that you want to do to sort of remember some of this information. Unfortunately, there are several people in our community who've been on this call. I got 2 calls today of people who have been affected by COVID that have directly participated in our webinars. So it's COVID-19, what we know so far and planning for the future. My name is Dr. Valda Crowder, also known as Dr. V, which is very much easier to say. I'm an emergency medicine physician. I've been an emergency medicine physician now for 30 years. And anything that is on this webinar, the original source documents will be on AskDrV.us. You can also follow me on Twitter at AskDr_V. All right, so let's get started. The structure of the presentation will be 10 to 15 minutes followed by Q&A. Might be a little bit longer, might be closer to 20 because there's a lot of information to really go over, especially preparing for school reopenings. So how to ask questions. Everyone for this presentation is in listen mode. You ask a question by typing it into the chat or typing it into the Q&A. We're going to take typed questions in the chat and Q&A first. Then depending upon how many people are on the call, I may be able to unmute people one at a time so that they can actually ask their questions. The intention is to keep all participants informed on COVID-19 science that will help them and their families stay healthy during this pandemic. The outcome is that you will leave the webinar motivated to create an action plan for you and your family. And some of you may be motivated to create an action plan for your broader community. You may represent a business or a homeowners association or a union or a sports team or league. So you may have a broader commitment. All right, it took 99 days for us to reach 1 million cases of COVID-19 in the United States, and then 43 days to hit 2 million cases in the United States. 28 days later, on July 8th, we reached 3 million cases. The 4th million case came 2 weeks later, and the number jumped to 5 million 17 days later. There is an urging of lawmakers to temporarily actually stop e-cigarettes. E-cigarettes and vaping is very much associated with a poor health outcome from COVID-19. And so there is an urge for the FDA to temporarily clear them off the marketplace. There are 13 states that, according to Harvard coronavirus experts, actually need to be on lockdown now. Those states are Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Arizona, Tennessee, Georgia, Nevada, South Carolina, Texas, Idaho, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. If you live in one of those states, if your state has not locked down, you do not need to wait for your governor to actually tell you to lock down. You can lock down yourself, right? So I urge people who are in those states who they may have elected officials that are not acting responsibly to just go ahead and lock down themselves. Now, how do I know if I or my family have COVID-19? There's several ways that you can determine that. So the diagnosis is made by PCR testing, antigen testing, and CAT scan findings. So I'm going to go over both of those, all of those. PCR testing is a genetic material of the virus. It's done by a nasopharyngeal swab of your nose or saliva. It's most accurate 8 days after exposure. So you can have a negative result when you're really positive if you get the test too early or if you get the test too late. Okay. Antigen testing, which is the proteins on the surface, this is a faster test. So you get the results back on this test in like 30 minutes to an hour. The problem is it will tell you 20 to 30% of the time that the person does not have COVID when they really do. If the test is positive, it is usually true. If it is negative, you may need another test. So we use a rapid test in the hospital setting, but we require 2 tests to be negative, which then takes into account the false negative rate of 20 to 30%. So if you remember recently, Governor DeWine of Ohio, he had a rapid test that was negative. Positive. And then he went back home because he couldn't meet the president, and he flew back to Columbus to Ohio State University, and he had a PCR test that was negative. Apparently the PCR test was done twice. It's unclear to me if it was done on the same nasopharyngeal swab or if it was actually literally done twice. Gary, I need you to go on mute. All right. CT actually provides the best diagnosis for the novel coronavirus. On CAT scan, what happens on CAT scan is there's ground glass appearance by CAT scan. And this is what they call pathognomonic. Or can somebody, wait, somebody needs to go on mute. Gary, is that you or somebody? I need everybody to go to mute.
That's not me. No, it's not me.
Okay, can you see who it is, and can you check the controls and see who it is and unmute them, please? All right, so CAT scan, you'll get ground glass opacifications or linear opacifications on the CT scan, and that is what they call pathognomonic, which means it's the only thing that causes that. So coronavirus is one of the only thing that causes those sorts of ground glass appearances. So when you see that, then we know that someone has COVID-19, even if their tests have been negative. All right, so let's talk about pediatric COVID, because there's a lot of stuff in the about children and going back to school and are they really at risk. So the largest study that was done outside of China in Europe. It was a multi-center study, 82 hospitals, over 25 European countries, with 582 confirmed pediatric cases of COVID. The children ranged from 3 days to 18 years old, and they were an average of 5 years old. So this is important because this is basically your school-age child in general. 75% of the children with COVID-19 had no pre-existing medical condition. They were healthy children. 65% of them had a fever, which means 35% of them did not have a fever, right? So if you're doing temperature checking, you'll get 65% of the people, but you're going to miss about 35%. 54% of them had URI, which is upper respiratory illness. 22 had nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea. 28% of them only had a headache. And then 25% of them had more wheezing, coughing, shortness of breath, that sort of thing. The other thing that you'll see in kids is what we call COVID toes. is where the reddish bluish discoloration of the extremities. It almost looks like their toes are frostbitten. This is almost completely suggestive of coronavirus. So if a parent described this over the phone, I would tell them, do not bring your child into the emergency department. I know they have coronavirus, just go to your nearest testing station. So what happened with these COVID-19 positive children? 62% of them required hospitalization. 8% of them actually were required to go to the ICU. 4% got put on ventilators for breathing support. 3% actually required blood pressure support. And 0.7%, which is 7 out of 1,000 of them, died. So what was the risk factors? Children that were less than 1 month old were likely to not do well. Male children also were more likely not to do well. Children presenting with respiratory symptoms rather than GI symptoms were more likely not to do well. And any sort of co-infection. So you had COVID-19 plus influenza. You had COVID-19 plus RSV. The study did not look at the impact of obesity. And that is very important because we have a childhood obesity problem in the United States that Europe does not have. So we would not be expected to do as well with COVID-19 because of our childhood obesity problem. So where did they get the infection from? About half of them got the infection from their parents, 4% from a sibling, so children do give it to each other, and 40% it was an unknown source. All right, so we've talked about this before. Respect COVID-19 is a droplet disease, but it also does sometimes act like an airborne disease. And it stays on surfaces for a very long time. Cardboard surfaces for 24 hours, plastic surfaces for 96 plus hours. Highly contagious. 45 seconds of exposure is all that's required to infect someone. And if 100 people got exposed to COVID-19, anywhere between 60 and 80% of them, or 60 to 80 of them, would actually become positive. Now, compare that to the flu. If 100 people got exposed to the flu, only 30 or 40 would become infected. Just a little bit about droplet versus airborne. Airborne is smaller particles. What we're seeing is that COVID-19 acts a little bit like both. So when there was a recommendation initially to only be 3 feet away from other people, that's because we thought it was a droplet disease. Once we realized that it actually is a droplet disease, it acts like an airborne disease, that's when we were told to stay 6 feet away from each other. And this kind of shows how someone coughing, the difference between the large particles and the small particles. So we're not sure whether or not COVID-19 becomes airborne because of heavy breathing or panting or singing, music instruments, micro droplets, but there's something that seems to occur that actually does lead it to become airborne. Because of this, it's very important if you have a child with asthma and you have a home nebulizer machine that you don't use it during this pandemic, or you use it outside. So you cannot tell the difference between an asthma attack and a COVID-19 symptoms. So if your child is having what you think is a normal asthma attack, but instead they are having a COVID-19 infection, and then you use a nebulizer machine, then you have created the infection as airborne throughout your house to be infected by everyone else. So instead, you can use a spacer with an inhaler. This delivers as much medication as a nebulizer, and then you put a mask on it. Or alternatively, you can also use a nebulizer outside on a porch or in a garage with the garage door open. All right, so now there's a whole thing about COVID-19 and the 6 clusters of infection. This is not 6 different diseases. This is actually COVID-19 and different ways in which it presents. So cluster 1 is a flu-like headache, loss of smell, muscle pain, cough, sore throat, no fever. Cluster 2 is flu-like with a fever. Cluster 3 is more gastrointestinal. So They get a little bit a headache, but they also have like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Now, cluster 4 is like cluster 1, but you have a lot of fatigue. Cluster 5 is like cluster 2, but they also have confusion. And then the most severe is cluster 6, where you have abdominal, respiratory, fatigue, confusion, and everything. So what we have found is that people who actually have kind of like a flu-like, coughing, upper respiratory illness, maybe no fever, those folks do pretty well. They can spread the disease a lot, so they may be super spreaders, but they're relatively healthy. Same thing with cluster 2 and 3. Those folks in general do not get hospitalized. Who actually gets hospitalized is cluster 4, 5, and 6. Those are the folks who get hospitalized, wind up in the ICU, and don't do particularly well. All right, this is Peter Tsai, and he is the inventor of the N95 mask. And he has come out of retirement to sort of help us. What's important is the most important thing of the N95 mask is the electrostatically charged fabric that is on the outside of the mask. That attracts particles like a magnet. That's why it's so important that you don't touch the outside of your mask. He recommends 7 masks, 1 for each day of the week. You hang them after you're done, and then you don't come back to that mask for a week. And that week time actually allows for the deactivation of the virus. I actually just saw a news report on CNN that Amazon now has KN95 masks available at $4 a piece. So I know there's been a lot of people on the webinar who said they haven't been able to get them. We've been able to get them on eBay. I sent about 300 of them to my family members over the weekend, but I did hear today that they are available now on Amazon, the KN95 mask. So N95, KN95, N99, P100, what is the difference? So N95 masks are US standard respiratory masks. KN95 are Chinese standards. Both of them actually block 95% of the particulate matter. N100 masks actually block and filter 99.97 of the airborne particles. P100 block 99.9% of the particles. So the number actually relates to what percentage of the particles are actually blocked. This is what an N95 looks like. Now some of them look different than this, but this is a couple of examples. This is what the N99 respirators look like. This is the P100s. I have this to actually fly with. The purple cartridges are for particulate matter, and those are the ones that you actually want. I just got sent, I got sent this. This is a new mask that's coming out, and I haven't ordered this yet. This is $15. This is FDA registered, not approved, N99 active ventilation, HEPA filter, and it's clear so people can see you smile. So I am actually getting ready to purchase this mask. So how to properly use a mask. Wash your hands before touching. Touch only the bands and the ties. Make sure the mask covers your mouth, nose, and chin. Make sure you can breathe and talk comfortably. If it's reusable, you can, and it's fabric, then you can go ahead and wash it. Do not touch the outside of a mask, your mask or a child's mask. Do not wear it underneath your chin. Do not leave your nose and mouth uncovered. And do not remove the mask while you're around other people in public. And I would also add to that, don't remove your mask when you cough or sneeze. The purpose is that you do want to cough and sneeze into your mask. And obviously don't share your mask with anyone else. So the key points is that you're filtering 100% of the incoming air. You have layered fabric. If you're going to make a mask, then the best material to make it from is 100% cotton. And you want to have at least 3 layers, preferably 5 layers. You want it to properly fit. I really recommend that men get rid of facial hair. So facial hair is a problem because the masks don't fit. And then also what happens is that facial hair is a place where the coronavirus can kind of accumulate, and then you take in a larger viral load of it because it kind of accumulated, and then you actually took it in. You want it to be comfortable, and you want to have a metal bend piece around your nose. Now, they did talk about masks that you should not wear. So what we call neck gaiters. These are I call them like almost like a tube top, and people have it around their neck and then they pull it up around their nose. There's something going on with the neck gaiters that they have actually found that these actually increase COVID-19 transmission. Okay, these masks should not be worn. Should not be worn. These masks actually makes things worse. They're calling them neck gaiters, but I see them sometimes when people are exercising and things like that. The other things that don't work are bandanas and any sort of material that's knitted or woven. All right, face shields. So people ask, can I wear a face shield and not wear a mask? Face shields without a mask do not work. They've done a study in Switzerland and took a look at it, and they tried to use them in some bars, and it didn't work. So if you're going to use a face mask, you actually want to use a face shield with a mask, but not a face shield without a mask. Now, what happens with transmission? If you wear a regular mask and somebody else wears a regular mask, it really depends upon who has COVID-19. So for the purposes of this presentation, we're going to assume that the person to the left has COVID-19 and the person to the right is healthy. So if the healthy person wears a mask, transmission probability is 70%. If the COVID-19 person wears a mask, the transmission probability is 5%. If both people wear a mask, the transmission probability is 1.5%. So you are really wearing a mask for other people. One thing that's not talked about a little bit is the long-term effects of COVID-19. There's a thing called post-intensive care syndrome. That's where people have cognitive, mental, or physical impairment. About 75% of the patients coming out of the ICU from COVID-19 experience this. The most common things are renal failure, limb amputations, scarring, and pulmonary fibrosis and decreased lung capacity. With the pulmonary fibrosis and decreased lung capacity, they find that they have difficulty breathing with normal activities. So they can't even walk a block or clean the house and get short of breath when they might be a normal 25, 30-year-old. All right, everybody's been talking about vaccines. So I want to go over the process. Exploratory phase is the first phase, and that basically goes over how does this infection infect people. Preclinical is where you test it on animals. Then you have phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Phase 1 and phase 1 is a very small group of people just to see if it's safe. Phase 2 is an increased number of participants, and phase 3, you're normally doing, like currently with our phase 3s that they're working on, they're doing 30,000 people, right? Then you have regulatory review and approval, manufacturing, quality control, and then distribution. All right, so remember this, all right, as we go through this. All right, so right now we have over 150 vaccines in various levels of preclinical, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and approval could be in another country, not in the US, okay, in another country. So now, supposedly Russia approved the world's first vaccine. This actually came out today, and I wanted to actually really talk about this because we saw this occur with Ebola. With Ebola, Russia said they approved the first vaccine. So they're doing the same thing they did before. So what we have found with this is, one, they don't report the literature. It's not, the data is not in a peer-reviewed journal. And there's usually a lot of irregularities going on. So what I mean by irregularities is you have the researchers injecting themselves as study participants. So normally as a researcher, I'm not the study participant. Other people are the study participant, and I'm actually being objective and actually seeing what occurs with them. So what Russia has done is they've taken the adenovirus vaccine. They've replaced the genetic material with COVID-19, and they're like, voila, we have a vaccine. This is not a vaccine that I would trust or take. This is why we do the webinars, because I want people to know when we have a vaccine that I would trust or take, I will actually show you, and we will have on our website the study, the peer-reviewed study that's studied and looked at by other physicians that agree. So, but this is not it. All right, so we've looked at a lot of different things. Obviously, right now we can't do church, and church is difficult because it's indoors. You're there for several hours. Singing and instruments and the call and response actually aerosolizes the virus. Gyms are also difficult. This is what some people have done to sort of make gyms work. I think it's really best to actually just work out outside. Office spaces are also difficult, particularly if you share a ventilation system with multiple floors. That also is problematic. So let's talk about schools. This is a picture of South Korea and what their schools look like when they open. Again, everyone has on a mask. In addition to a mask, they have on a 3-sided shield on their desk, right? So what's most important to know what to do regarding school is to know your zone. So people say, well, what do you mean know your zone? Every county has been assigned a color coding, green, yellow, or red. I have, and I put on my website, a coronavirus task force that shows the zones by county in the United States as of July 17th. You can also go to a website called actcovidnow.org, actcovidnow.org, and I will put that on my website as well. And that actually lists every county in the United States, and it gives you all of the information on these categories. So red zone is anybody that has new cases more than 100 per 100,000, or a diagnostic test positivity of greater than 10%. All that means is 100 people took the test and more than 10 came back positive. That's all a diagnostic test positivity rate means, okay? 100 people took it and 10 people came back, more than 10 people came back positive. Yellow zone is 10 per 100 per 100,000 with a diagnostic test positivity rate of 5 to 10%. Green zone is less than 10 per 100,000 and less than 5 out of 100 come back positive. So if you do not know your zone, as soon as this is over, I want you to put your county and your state in the chat box. The American Academy of Pediatrics actually went over a lot of different things: education, nutrition, students with disabilities, special populations, athletics, mental health, group size, isolation measures, all of the things that you actually need to do to actually bring a school back. So this is also on the website, and it's a very, very detailed. But it gives you things to look at if you're concerned and you want to ask your school, what are they doing? So what is the infection rate in your community? That is the first thing that you need to answer when you talk about your kids going back to school. Then what is the age of your children? Are your kids actually able to wear a mask and keep a mask on? And do they understand the importance of this? Then the other thing that's important to ask is, what is the age and condition of other people living in my home? Do we live in a multi-generational home? Does grandma and great aunt live in the house? That's also important. So what most countries have done is, first, they've decreased the community infection rate. Then they've decreased the class size to 10 to 15. They've moved desks apart, 6 feet apart. They've removed public water fountains. They've provided PPE for teachers and administrators. They've cleaned the rooms, offices, and buses more than once a day, like twice a day. They've installed cleaning stations where the kids can get hand sanitizer, and they've done universal temperature testing. So those are some of the things that have been done in other countries to actually make this work. And those are the type of things that you actually want to maybe email your school administrators to ask. All right, this is a COVID risk chart that was put together by the Texas American Medical Association. I like this because it compares all sorts of activities. This is also on the website. So the most dangerous activities are going to the bar, attending a religious service, or a large concert or a sporting event. Next would be eating at a buffet or working out at a gym, going to an amusement park, or going to the movies. Next would be swimming in a public pool, working in an office for a week, or sending your kids to school, camp, or daycare. Next is having dinner at someone else's house, attending a backyard barbecue. Next is staying in a hotel for 2 nights, sitting in a doctor's waiting room, or going to a library or museum, or eating at a restaurant. Next is grocery shopping. Grocery shopping, going for a walk, run, or bike, or playing golf, or all 3. 2 is playing tennis, going camping, or getting restaurant takeout. And 1 is opening your mail at home by yourself. All righty. So a couple of things, good news. This is an at-home COVID-19 test that people can spit in, and it's a strip that then tells you if you're positive or negative, and it's dated. It's almost like a diabetes test. It's very important. It's been used in Australia to help people sort of get back to their normal life. The other thing that's really interesting is the dogs are sniffing out COVID-19, and they are actually more accurate than the test. So the veterinary medicine actually is very, very promising around COVID-19 dogs. That's done in the UK. I remind people, make sure to go and get your regular cancer screening and your regular primary care because you're more likely to have something go on, like, something going on with high blood pressure or cancer or just a regular stroke than COVID-19. We often get very, very focused on COVID-19, which is important, but you don't want to forget the rest of your healthcare. All right, we're going to go to Q&A. Okay, how long does it take to train a COVID-19 pooch? So I didn't see, and that's a very interesting question. I didn't actually see in the study how long it took. But what I did see was that it was easier to train them to actually distinguish COVID-19. It was easier to train them than it was to train a narcotics dog. So they used the comparison of a narcotics dog. And I believe that's probably because, like with drug detection, you're training a dog that they might actually have to like distinguish between. They have to know like marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, all of those are a hit, right? Where with COVID-19, there's only one thing, which is COVID-19. So they actually didn't say how long as far as time, but they did compare it to the DEA dogs, and they did determine that the dogs were easier to train than narcotic dogs, which I thought to be very interesting. All right. Any other questions? Put in the Q&A or put in the chat. All right, we've got a question here in the Q&A. I saw a study that blood type O is more resistant to COVID-19. Is that correct? So yes, that is correct. Resistant would not be the word that I would use. So something is going on with blood type O, and it doesn't matter if it's O negative or O positive, and that they are somewhat protected. They are less likely to go to the ICU, and they're less likely to need a ventilator. We don't exactly know what it is. And there's something with blood type A, that blood type A is more likely to get this infection and end up in the ICU, and they are more likely to end up on a ventilator. So there's different proteins on the surfaces of your blood when you have blood type O versus blood type A. So there seems to be something that is related to what's on the surface that actually makes a difference in the infection actually getting into your body, getting into your lungs, and actually really progressing. And we don't know what it is right now, but that difference has been reported consistently in China, in Europe, and now in the United States. So it's been consistent across continents. So it doesn't mean, hey, I'm safe if I have blood type O. I don't want anybody to think that you're immune because you have blood type O. It just means you're less likely, okay? So it can still happen, you're just less likely, that's all. All righty. Let's see here. Okay, all righty. I answered both of those live. Okay, all righty. Any other questions? Put them in the chat. We've got a smaller group. Put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A, or raise your hand. So first of all, does everybody here know if they're in a yellow, green, or red zone? If you don't know if you're in a yellow, green, or red zone, that would be the first thing that I would put in the chat. You could put your county and your state, and then we can actually look it up. Because it's a lot of times people don't know if they're actually in a hot area. And it's very, very important that you actually know what type of area you're in.
Dr. Bowder, can you add the link in the chat to test that, to find that link?
Actually, Gary, I'm going to put the, hold on just a second. I'm going to do the share again. Gary, if you could turn the hosting back to me.
I don't think I ever took it off.
I did. I put you in. I put you as host. So if you could click your name. Yes, I know. I agree. So there was another question about the Australia device. I will actually check out the Australia device. I promise to actually look up that information. I haven't gotten around to it, but I will. Yeah, Gary, can you actually touch your name and then actually see if you can unhost and make me the host?
Okay, did I do it?
No, try again.
Did that do it?
No. Okay, so why don't I do this? What I will do on Thursday is I will make sure on Thursday that I add as part of our screen share going over the covidactnow.org. So that site does a couple of things. It tells you how many new cases per 100,000. It also tells you your test positivity rate, which will be red or yellow or green. And then it also tells you what percentage of your ICU beds are full and what percentage of your contract cases are being contract traced. And we had a very important call earlier, about maybe 2 months ago, with 2 contract tracers. For the contract tracing, you will find on that website, there's a lot of unreported information, which actually they're not reporting how many contract tracers they've hired or what is going on. So you will find that that is one of the things that's going on. All right, so we got another question. How long do the blood antibodies last in storage? Does one have to have the same blood type to donate to a patient? So one of the best things that helps with COVID-19 is plasma therapy from somebody that has had COVID-19. So if you know anybody that has had COVID-19, it's very important that they get themselves tested for antibodies to see if they have antibodies and then possibly donate their plasma. So in general, yes, we prefer that the blood types match. And what we found is that if you have COVID-19, the antibodies don't last forever. So there seems to be sort of like a degrading of the antibodies when you get past 4, 5, 6 months, right? And it's different for everybody. We haven't figured out, why some people, the antibodies go out fast and other people, they last for a long time. We haven't quite figured that out. But because of that, some people have caught COVID-19 for a second time, right? So it is very important if you actually have the antibodies. So one of the things that I think that we should do is we should incentivize people to get antibody tested. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't, pay people $1,000 to go get antibody tested. Because if I give those antibodies through the plasma to somebody in the ICU, they're off the ventilator in 1 or 2 days. It's an amazing turnaround, right? And so that's really, really, really important. But yes, we do prefer to give it to people that are of the same blood type. Doesn't have to be, but we prefer, and we're normally able to do that. All right. All right, I have the covidactnow.org is the website. I put that in the chat for everybody to actually see. You can go to that website and then you can pull up your state and then you can pull up your county. So you can see what's happening in your county compared to every place else. Can antibodies be given when one first gets a disease or first winds up in the hospital? Technically they could, but we actually don't do that. So what we do is we preserve the antibodies because we don't have a lot of them. We preserve the antibodies for people that are actually in the ICU and on a ventilator. And also we preserve it for people who've actually been on the ventilator for a while. Now, there is a trial study going on where they give a micro dose of the antibodies as a vaccine, right? And that is one of the trials that is currently going on, because a micro dose of the antibodies has been shown to be quite effective to make sure that people actually don't get it. That is something that they're currently being studied. But we just don't have enough. We don't have enough plasma to give to everybody, so we reserve it to those people that are that we think we can rescue from dying. All righty. So the person who asked about antibodies, do you have antibodies? Because that's what we're always looking for people with antibodies. So if anybody on this call actually wants to go get antibody tested and donate plasma, I would love to interview someone who has gotten antibody tested and then donated plasma that can come back and actually really talk about it. So I would love to make that one of our sessions so we can actually see what that included. All right, any other questions? We are, go ahead and put them in the chat. It's 8:50. We've got about 10 more minutes if you have any more questions. I really, like I said, I really would love for somebody, oh, So somebody asked a question, there's a problem with the, well, they didn't actually, it's not a question, it's a statement. They're saying there's a problem with the Red Cross. They don't test donated blood for COVID. Okay, so this is a problem in more than just the Red Cross, okay? So I had a case today where someone died violently, and they were young. It was a man who died in a domestic violence dispute. And the family decided to donate his organs. He was young, in his early 20s. So they donated his organs, they took him to the OR, they harvested all their organs, and they did not do a COVID test until later. So later the COVID test came back positive, and then they had to throw out all the organs that they had just harvested from it. So when we harvest organs, we normally bring the people in that are actually going to get the donations. They get hospitalized. There's this whole process. So this was unfortunate at many different levels. And so, no, so we're not testing. We need to, and again, this goes back to us not having a rapid test, right? And we saw this, and so we saw this with HIV. This is how Arthur Ashe, as a tennis player, got HIV. We weren't, the Red Cross was not testing the blood supply. He had a transfusion related to heart surgery, and that is how Arthur Ashe succumbed to HIV. So we've seen this before. We've done this before, and we just really haven't learned. So these things really are things that I think that we're going to have to, we're going to have a dramatic shift in our philosophy or in our culture as a country before we actually begin doing the right things, because these are things that we know to do. So we need to test blood that's donated to the Red Cross, and we need to test before we harvest organs. All righty. Okie dokie. All righty. Any other questions? All right, we got one more. Yeah, so a person put in the chat, so if I get into a car accident and I need blood, I might get COVID positive blood. Yes, you could possibly get COVID-19 positive blood if you were in an accident or in an emergent situation. I don't know now, one of the things that we did with HIV before they were testing, what we did was we used UV light and microwaving the blood to kill it. Because the Red Cross and other parties were not testing it. I don't know if they're doing that right now, but yeah, it is not a good situation out there right now. All righty, so I want to thank all of you guys for coming. Please make sure with the notice that you get at the end of this, that if you have any questions that you want to add or send me, please go ahead and send me. I will make sure to add the slide to the presentation. I specifically really want to hear from somebody who actually had the antibody test and donated blood and did the plasmapheresis. I would love to interview that person as a part of this presentation. And make sure to invite any of your friends or family members onto this presentation for Thursday. We're getting ready, as we say, to go back into the school year. And there's a lot of things that we need to sort of do and figure out before we send our kids to school and begin everything. So I want to thank all of you for coming this evening. And I want to thank you for participating. Thank you.